Last weekend, I had an experience where I had 5 people cry on my shoulders. And I'm not saying a little bit of crying, like sobbing on my shoulders. And the thing about this experience is it wasn't a sad experience. These people weren't crying because they were sad. They were emotionally overwhelmed because they overcome a challenge that was absolutely huge in their life. And today I want to talk about why taking on a challenge like this level is so important, and 5 steps you want to think about if you're going to take this challenge on in your life, which can often be one of the most rewarding things in your life. Last weekend we were down at the Queenstown Marathon. We've got a running business called Extra Mile Runners, and we took a massive group of runners to do the half marathon. Some people did the 10K, and then we had about 17 people doing the marathon. And it's such a cool day because these people trained together for a couple of months leading up to the race, and there's this really cool team feeling, and everyone comes across the finish line on their emotional highs and all the stories of the day and the support. It's kind of like the best of what I get to do. And in this day, there was 5 really powerful moments. And there were powerful moments, and I remember there's one lady, like this basically happened to me 5 times. There's a lady who had done her first ever marathon, and being a coach, just so proud of these people. And I went up to the lady and I said, "How'd you go?" I went to give her a hug, and she just broke down. Like, she just emotionally broke down, and she was like sobbing on my shoulder for a couple of minutes. And it was actually a really, really special moment. And she wasn't the only person this happened with. About 5 of the people who did my marathon or did the marathon, this was the experience I had as a coach, is that when they come in for the hug, they just absolutely broke down. And it's actually a really special moment to share with somebody. But the thing I love about this moment, and there's so much power in this moment, because these people had taken on doing a marathon. And if you've never done a marathon is such a massive achievement. Like, to get to the finish line of a marathon. And the great thing about all the people in my training group who did the marathon is they did the work. Like, they all did all the training leading up to the race. They practiced all the things that we coached them. They got to the start line giving themselves the best chance of doing well, and they got to the finish line. But a marathon is pretty much always hard. It's a massive achievement for somebody to achieve in their life. And when these people got to the finish line, there was a moment of pride, but there was also that release of, oh my God, I've done maybe one of the hardest things I've done in my life. And even these people who were crying on my shoulders, you could see they were proud of the experience, but just the emotional challenge of working through this very fatiguing, this very challenging place of just getting to this finish line of this crazy race was just such an overwhelming thing that eventually they just kind of snapped when they gave me the hug. Now, this is a really cool moment, and I hope you have these moments in your life, because these moments are really, really powerful. So today I wanted to talk about 5 things to think about if you want to get to that place where maybe you're challenged so much that it's actually maybe one of the most rewarding moments in your life. So the first thing is sign up for something. Sign up for something that's going to challenge you in a massive way. Now, there's probably a pathway that you need to think about as you do this. But I often think, like, all those 5 people, or anyone who did the marathon last weekend really, they'll remember that day till the day they die. They'll remember that moment. They'll remember that adversity. They'll remember the moment where they got across the finish line. They're going to remember the toughest moments. They're going to remember when they saw their friends and family out there. This is a stamp and a day on their life that they're going to have forever. And I think that in our life, we need these moments. We need these moments where we have to face really hard adversity, and we're doubt, and we've got to work at it, and we get to the end of it, and it's so satisfying, but we're so fatigued that it's almost too overwhelming. Like, it's a great thing in a life to have moments where we have to get to that place. The second thing is, once you sign up, you need to respect and do the work. And this is where I'm so proud of everyone who does my running groups, is everyone who turned up to Queenstown had done the work. They got up every day, they did the training, they respected the challenge. And this is often the problem for a lot of people when they take on a challenge, is they take on a challenge but they don't respect the challenge. I often like to talk about this at half marathons. If we look at the Queenstown half marathon last weekend, I don't know, let's say they had 3,000 people racing the half marathon. Probably 70% of the field hadn't done all the work. They wouldn't have done all the training they would have done. They wouldn't have hit their objectives. They wouldn't have done the nutrition planning. They wouldn't have done race planning. So when they get to the race, they might get to the finish line, but they don't get to the finish line in the best way possible. And it's because they haven't respected the work that they need to do. So if you're going to take on a challenge like a marathon or like something that's so challenging in your life, you've got to do the work and you've got to respect the work. Because the real thing is, and we always hear about this, is that the real lesson's in the journey. And this is the thing about a marathon. It's actually not. It's in both. It's in the journey and in the event. But you've got to do the work. So if you're going to sign up for something, respect and do the work is so, so important. What else did I write down here? You need to prepare yourself mentally. Like the one thing I'm always trying to coach my runners is this is a mental game. And we're trying to delay the moment the race gets hard. But when it gets hard, what are you going to do? And sometimes we see people trip over at the first hurdle just because they haven't done the mental prep in the journey. And the funny thing, and this is a really interesting thing as we think about an exercise journey, because a lot of people on exercise journey will just focus on getting the exercise done, but they don't spend much time on the mental prep that it takes to be successful. And if we think of, let's say, a half marathon, if you're going to do a half marathon, you're probably going to train somewhere between 5 to 10 hours a week. So you'll do so much time doing training. Now, admittedly, in your training, you're going to learn your mental skills, but people do no mental prep outside of training. So you might spend 5 to 10 hours a week of training, but no time on your mental game. Even if you would spend 10% of that time, like an hour to 90 minutes a week on your mental prep, do you think that would make you a better athlete? Now, if you're going to take on a challenge like a marathon where you're going to be crying at the end because it's so emotionally overwhelming, and you're going to do the work and you're going to respect the work, part of that work is putting time aside for mental strategies. What are your mental toughness tools? What are your motivational strategies? What are going to be your strategies in how you navigate the race? What you're thinking and so on. And so many people neglect this part of the puzzle so that when they get to the hard moment, they often just quit. Now, they might keep moving, but they do the rest of the race in a way where they're disappointed in themselves. So you must do the work in your mental tools. What else did I write down here? Understand, and this is a bit of emotion motivation thing, is understand the stamp this will have on the rest of your life. And this is actually really interesting. I once had a mate who did one of those boxing matches, and like not celebrity, but kind of local boxing matches where you get local people fighting each other. And my mate was a really fit guy. He's a bit like me. He was a guy in the fitness industry, and he was really fit. So he kind of went to the boxing match, kind of just assumed he would win because he was fit, and he didn't respect the challenge. So what happened was he kind of thought his fitness would get through it. He didn't really do that. When he did sign up for the challenge, they said, we're going to give you 3 boxing sessions a week for 4 months leading into it. So you're really prepared for the fight. And he kind of turned up and did, 1 a week, maybe 2 a week. Didn't really respect the challenge because in his mind, he was like, I'm so fit. My fitness is going to get me through this. And he lost. And I said to him, what was it like? And he said, Bevan, it really scarred me. Like it took me probably a year to get over that fight, because it turned out I didn't respect it, and it really hurt my identity and how I saw myself. Now, because he didn't respect the opportunity, the experience actually stamped a bad stamp on himself, and it took him a while to overcome this. And this is what we don't want from these experiences. Like, we don't want to be the person that quits. We want to be the person who actually gets to the finish line in a way that we're proud of ourselves. And when we think about motivation, all the people who did the marathon last weekend, the stamp that they have from that moment forward for the rest of their life is huge. The identity they get to own, the understanding that I know how to fight in resilience, I know how to overcome adversity, I know that in my darkest times I can keep going. That is such a powerful stamp to have on yourself in your life. And that's what these experiences can do. So when you think about taking on an experience at this level, understand the value of the stamp you're going to get. Make sure you do the work so you don't get the wrong stamp, which can have a cost in a negative way in your life. Ultimately, I believe all of us should have moments in our life where we're challenged to that level. And the value of this place is absolutely huge. The self-discovery, the growth, the confidence, the resilience that you'll build in yourself by that kind of challenge is one of the most powerful things you can do. So maybe my first thing to say to you is maybe it's time for you to take on a challenge of that level, where if you were to achieve it, you'd almost be crying at the finish line. But then at the same time, respect the challenge and do the work. Make sure you understand the stamp it's going to have on yourself. What was my third one? And learn to put mental tools in the journey. If you can do these things well, seriously, it'll be one of the most powerful things that you will not forget until the day you die in your life.